Hey guys, it's Chris Bennett here. I'm the second seat to Steve Kulls on Squatch-D TV and also the Bigfoot News on Friday nights. I had found during a recent internet search the Wayback Machine, and I was really tickled to find my old website. It was still back there, still up. And while I was reviewing the old website, oh my gosh, this was terrible. I did find the sightings page. And on this page is an encounter that I would like to share with you guys. And we'll get Steve to edit a video up on it. But this was a witness that had contacted me back in 2010. And I'm going to list his name as, I'm going to call him Mr. W. He was from Logan County, Kentucky. And I'm going to read off this sighting report. And I made a follow-up visit to the area too. And I'll follow up on that during the report. But yeah, okay, this one, I'll just start. Mr. W's encounters, two sightings, sometime in the 1960s and one in 1973, Logan County, Kentucky. This account was sent to me by a witness who wishes to remain unnamed in the public eye. I'll refer to the witness only as Mr. W. I've spoken with this witness at length and also met with him on 10/5/2010. I consider him a good friend and he is completely credible. His encounters were related to me exactly as follows. Now, I'd like to add in here too that Steve and I did have Mr. W on the show years ago, and I think that's back when we were doing Squatch Detective radio back in those days. But here's his account as written. Growing up on a farm in West Logan County, our property was backed up to a very long wooded area with a small creek that traveled through the county. Naturally, a lot of my spare time was with a fishing pole at a pond or creek and roaming the woods with a .22 rifle during squirrel season. I think it was 1963 or 1964 the county had its first deer season. I immediately took up the sport of deer hunting. Deer were scarce the first few years, and it was exciting to watch for them. But what I saw in October of 1973 has left a big impression on me ever since. I had parked my old worn-out Jeep near the back of my father's property and crossed a long but somewhat narrow soybean field to a faint deer trail that led from a wooded hollow into the soybean field. I climbed up a good tree near the trail, pulled up my bow and a small tree seat, and sat there well past sundown. I just wanted to see deer. The sky was cloudless and a full moon was up when I decided to quietly climb down from the tree. Then a fox ran below me at full speed. I didn't give the fox any thought and descended the tree quietly as possible. It was roughly 25 yards through the woods to the bean field, so I slipped the distance hoping to see or spook some deer. Just as I stepped to the edge of the field, I was the one that really got spooked. Probably no more than 10 yards at a 45 degree from me was an extremely large creature standing erect. I cannot give the exact size, only to say it was around 7 foot or more and may have weighed several hundred pounds. It was very heavy set with broad shoulders, long arms, and a heavy short neck. I could not see the features of its face or smell it. It did not move or make any sound. I had no choice except to walk away in front of the creature, pretending to ignore it as it watched me. I had the flashlight but didn't dare to shine it at its face. It frightened me to the point of my knees buckling, and if it made a noise of any kind, they would have. Even today, when I relate the incident, chill bumps sometimes appear on my arm. I watched it until it was silhouetted against the woods. The next day, I went back to the site with a large rifle and took to look for some indication of what I had seen. The ground was dry and no tracks were found or any bushes where it was standing. About 4 to 5 years later, I finished building a 29 caliber flintlock Kentucky long rifle and decided to take it squirrel hunting in the woods behind my father's farm. I had been out a couple hours hunting the other side of the creek near the top of a ridge line. I was slowly moving on a game trail when I happened to notice a large dry feces containing hair. I moved on down the trail several yards when there was another, only fresh and big as a large ear of corn, still moist, containing hair. It was much too large for any normal critter, and my thoughts went back to that October night. Whatever had been there was much too large for my 29 caliber single shot flintlock rifle, so I left the area. I always regretted not going back to retrieve the feces to have it tested. The only other thing I can relate about the area is a couple of my city friends that enjoyed shooting and hunting with flintlocks wanted to hunt squirrels one evening and the next morning. We decided to camp out near the creek at the mouth of another small stream in a tent. Sometime during the night, I was awakened by the tent being violently shaken from the top. I sat up, turned on the flashlight, the tent quit shaking, and the other hunters were in their sleeping bags. I heard no other sounds, and there was no wind. For many years, I enjoyed hiking and hunting those big woods, and I'm not prone to be frightened of anything from snakes to whatever. But what I have related here is absolutely true. I would like to see that creature again. Now, this is my written follow-up investigation report. I met with Mr. W on 10/5/2010 to view the sighting locations and the general area. Of course, since this was a historical sighting, I didn't expect to find any evidence from those previous encounters. It was more a general critique of the area to see if it's possible creature habitat. And of course, during our walk, my eyes would be open for any fresh sign or evidence of recent activity. Now, the location. The exact location will remain secret. The location of the encounters was well off the main road. There's a long soybean field that goes back to a large wooded area. I would estimate this wooded area to be a distance of about 1.5 miles from the road, but I think it would be a modest estimate as it may be closer to 2 miles. When entering the wooded area from the bean field, there's quite a decline in elevation down to the creek in the bottom. I estimate an average of 25 to 30 degree decline, and some areas of the hillside are well over 45 degrees, I'm sure. After crossing the creek, we went up the opposite side, and the incline was a bit steeper than 30 degrees. Mostly hardwood trees make up these woods. There's also some noticeable old growth. Acorns littered the ground, and I mean, we could have picked up a 5-gallon bucket full in just a few minutes if we had desired. Deer are plentiful in the area. There were several game trails that had many deer tracks. That these trails looked to be an interstate highway used by the deer. Yeah, there was a lot of deer tracks there, a lot of deer trails. An absolute herd of deer frequent the property. Also noticed several tree stands on the property. It is no doubt this area is a deer hunter's paradise. I noticed a lot of turkey sign, and we both found a few feathers too. I got to see a few turkeys at the edge of the bean field, but they made tracks fast when they saw us. Turkeys have eyes like eagles, guys, if you don't know. There was sign from rabbits and squirrels. In short, an abundance of small and large game is in this area. So anyway, back to the report. The tent shaking location. Mr. W showed me that the tent was set up on a little knoll just up out of the creek, about 4 to 5 feet above it. Nice level spot with a few smaller trees close to one end where the tent was set up. Mr. W informed me that since the encounter had happened several years ago, the topography of the location is ideal. The tent was set up at the mouth of 2 adjoining hollows. These 2 hollows run together and funnel into one. This creates a natural narrowing of the lowland travel route these creatures seem to frequent. Now, that was my opinion. You had 2 hollows that funneled into one, and where the tent location was at that adjoining area. So great, doubled your chances of having an encounter there. Okay, these hollows form a natural Y shape, each with its own creek branch flowing, and the tent was set up directly where the two hollows become one. You couldn't plan a better place to set up if you wanted to observe for possible ranging activity of the creatures. A creature could be traveling along the right or hollow to the left. Either way, this location is perfect place to catch the traffic from both hollows. For those not from this general area that may be reading this report, a hollow is a valley between two large hills. We do have a lot of mountains in Kentucky, but mostly we have hills and hollows. So you can think of it this way. The hill would be a small mountain, and a hollow is the valley between two hills. Okay, about the tent shaking encounter. This behavior, curiosity, has actually had similar accounts reported in the past as relates to creatures' activity. The creatures seem to be attracted to tents placed in their territory. Many a camper has reported hearing bipedal movement around their tent as well. Some reports tell of the witness actually seeing a shadow move across the outside of the tent, and at least one report the witness has thought there was a bear outside his tent at first. Then he became extremely alarmed when he saw a hairy arm with a distinct hand-shaped shadow pass across the roof of his tent. Mr. W. reported he did not see anything or hear anything, and there was no wind. I firmly believe that this encounter is indeed creature-related. My theory, formed by studying the actual location, is that the creature was likely standing in the creek bottom just below the knoll the tent was placed on. The creature likely moved without any noticeable sounds the small tree that Mr. W. pointed out to me. This tree was also where Mr. W. had attached the top support line for the tent. I theorize the creature, while standing in the creek bottom, grabbed hold and began shaking the small tree, and this likely is what caused the violent shaking that awoke Mr. W. This would also account for no sounds being heard near the tent as well. Now, that's not to say the creature couldn't get near the tent without being heard, because they could have. They could have then, they can now, and they do. Silent movement is one of their specialties. Now, that's just my opinion. Mr. W. is an experienced woodsman, and yet it's no surprise he heard no sounds of retreat after he had switched on the flashlight. My theory is that the creature likely became curious when it saw the tent placed in this area, likely saw the ropes from the tent running over the tree, and likely moved the tree a bit and noticed the tent moved as well. This began a short but violent shaking session, which was quickly ended when Mr. W. turned on his light inside the tent. It's funny to imagine what the creature may have thought when that light popped on. A human response would have probably been something to the order of, "Oh, shoot." I can only imagine this creature had a similar thought and then retreated. Sorry for the dirty word there, folks, but it tickles me to consider what was going on in the creature's mind when that light came on, as a direct result of him shaking the tent. I bet he was thinking something similar. Anyway, that's the funny part about this encounter, but only after the fact. I'm sure during the encounter, Mr. W. did not find any of it funny, and as it was happening, and likely I wouldn't have either. I'm not trigger-happy type person, and it's a good thing Mr. W. isn't either. I'm sure if this encounter had happened to a lot of people, they would have, and they were the ones that were awakened, the tent would have likely had a few fresh bullet holes in it, and that's understandable. I love animals, especially these creatures, but they best leave folks alone when they sleep, or expect no quarter when they wake someone by shaking a tent violently. And that's what all included in this report that I found in the Wayback Machine, guys. That's from the old website, and I wanted to include this and get this up going in case this stuff, gets taken down for permanently. But we had Mr. W on as a guest on Squatch Detective Radio, Logan County, Kentucky. a very an elderly man. I'm not certain if Mr. W is still with us or not. I would certainly like to hear from him if he is. Very credible individual. Again, he didn't want any fame, fortune, anything like. The main thing he wanted to see the creatures again before he made his exit. But that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you next time.
Hey gang, if you like our content here, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to the channel. Also feel free to share our content. Sharing is caring. If you'd like to support a channel that searches for the truth without all the fluff and fantasy, consider becoming a member. Till next time, everyone be safe, stay healthy, God bless, and of course, keep on squatching.